You know, we can't live in a Pinterest house. So I'm thinking about this in terms of my home here. I'm the one who sees the styling and sees the environment, and the yin to my yang is my husband who lives here with me. And so if we're out shopping and I see this really cool chair, he'll just sit on it and go, it's not very comfortable. So that sense of the functionality of it matters as much as the styling matters, and being able to work together to do that is something that is really important in the design of the home. And how can we bring that sort of thinking into learning environments? So I'm just going to go back and review. We talked about the network of elements that together shape the learning environments that Giz Larson raised. And we looked at some teacher culture in the last section. We're going to have now take our attention to the other aspects of the network of elements and overlay with that the Simon Sinek start with why. So that very simple why is our purpose, how is our process, and what being the result we're looking for. But what I find with people is that there's a lot of why, the purpose being clarity on the purpose, but then we tend to jump to the result rather than spend time thinking about how it's going to work. For example, when I would show people around, I worked at an innovative school, and when I'd show people around, they would see a piece of furniture or some sofas and go, we want collaboration. Those sofas will be fantastic. They'll change our school. Jumping straight from purpose to result without thinking about, well, how are those sofas going to work in your school? Something as simple as that. So I've sort of clumped together Giz Larson's work into these: why, the student dynamic, why do we do these things? The how is the teacher culture that we want, that needs to be in place to support the student dynamic, then the school organisation that needs to be around that so it's sustainable, and then finally, what does that mean for the physical environment? Not just jumping from student dynamic to physical environment, but thinking through the how a lot more, to a much deeper degree. I jokingly call this as that how is the neglected middle child of the Start With Why family, but it's where I love to spend my time, helping people to unpack the how. So we're going to look at here in terms of teacher culture, and then we'll spend some time looking at the physical environment. Sorry, teacher culture and organisation, and then the physical environment. So in my travels, I would take people on study tours to different parts of the world. And this is a story of a school that I've told many times, but it's been a very pivotal one in my experience, in that I visited a school prior to occupancy with the architect who designed it. He was commissioned by the local council to say, look, we want a future-focused school, we want collaboration, we want openness. You can see that there's gathering stairs. There are many aspects of what we see in a future-focused school today. And as I walked around, I love this little nook. It was utilising a space in between two class areas by having these places where you could do individual work or small group work, and students could retreat there and just work in this little quiet but beautiful and light-filled space. And this was a very pivotal, I love this image, and it stayed with me for a long time. And then I had this opportunity to go back to the school about a year and a half later, once it had been in full swing. And when I walked around, I could hardly recognise it. Instead of that sense of openness of the learning spaces, whatever was at hand was used to block it off, because the teachers wanted to close off the spaces. And I thought, oh my gosh, what can I find that space that I saw before? And I did. And this is what I found. I found that where it was a movement area, it was now blocked off into a single classroom. Where there was light coming in, the blinds had been closed. There was changes that had been made in that space. It made me think, what was the emerging problem that this became the solution? And with that thought in mind, I'd like to draw your attention to, this is the work of Sengi, who's a business He works in education. You worked in education in business, in helping people to unpack strategy. And he said they operate often in a problem fix mode. What's the problem? We fix it. Current reality, react, problem fix. And do you notice that when you just get in that problem fix mode, you just keep staying in that same loop? And the same problems arise because we fix it the same way. And he encourages people to think deeper around not just the problem fix loop. So we have a problem, this is the solution. That's what happens there. So if we think about it here, I wonder what the problem was. So if the problem was two different teacher styles, one was wanting a quiet classroom, one was wanting a noisy classroom, the only solution that they could see was put up a barrier that solves our problem. And it might, but it doesn't serve future focused learning of the students that the space intended. So what he suggests is that we go deep and we just go back to our mental models, and then we work our way up. And I'll explain to you what this means now. So what Sengi's work encourages us to do is to, first of all, address our mental models. What are our shared beliefs, values, attitudes about students, learning, pedagogy, and the learning environment? If we think about that teacher I spoke of earlier, the two teachers were in conflict, not on the same page, as she said. So it's that sense of having that teachers in a team having shared beliefs, values, and attitudes. And then we think about, well, what are the organizational elements, the systems we need to put in place if we think we want to be consistent with these shared beliefs? Then finally, what has been happening in the environment? Can we see patterns? If there's a sense of one teacher's noisy and one's more subdued in their voices, is there a negotiation that can happen there? But notice patterns that are emerging. Then rather than we react, we can respond on the foundations we've developed. And we can progress with confidence and optimism instead of getting caught in that problem fix loop. So what we're going to do now is really think about the journey mapping of students, reimagining the learning and teaching experiences in the space from those perspectives, from the perspective of the teacher experience, the teacher practice, the student experience, the teacher practice, and then the organization that needs to happen for that to occur successfully.